Texas MLS Podcast is here. I'm John Arnold, and I'm here in Dallas, Texas. Chris Bills is with us from his kitchen table in Austin. Victor Riza waiting on new furniture delivery in Houston. Everyone just feeling at home. We hope you feel at home here too. As for the next 30 minutes, we talk about soccer, Major League Soccer specifically in the state of Texas. It's all thanks to the Striker, the site we all work for, the site we all write for, and the site that hopefully you will enjoy subscribing to. If you haven't already, if you already do, thanks. We love you. Keep telling your friends. Keep giving everyone the latest on Texas soccer as we try to do as well. Kind of quiet weekend, guys. I want to hear a little bit about what you guys got up to, but here in North Texas, it wasn't actually that quiet because FC Dallas, after not playing a friendly match when Austin and Houston did in the June international break, they did play a friendly, losing 3-0 to Tigres. But Victor, not cause for concern in Dallas because of two things. Number one, because they were able to play a game. Remember last time that FC Dallas didn't play a game during the international break, they went on a skid. They went on, I think it was 7 matches without a victory. I wrote about it last week on the Striker about how they felt like they got knocked out of rhythm, that they were doing well, and things sort of started to take a turn for the worse. And they had to kind of re-find where that rhythm came from. But also because Tigres started a pretty darn strong team. There's only 1 or 2 guys missing for international duty. Andre Pierre-Gignac missing because he won't get vaccinated.
I was going to say, is that what we're calling it, the international duty?
Well, he's not on international duty. He's on domestic duty. He's on I can't get into your country duty, I guess. But anyway, I mean, they didn't need him, right? This is still a really strong team. Guys like Juan Pablo Don, Nahuel Guzman. There were tons of, I mean, look, when you're bringing a World Cup champion, a reigning World Cup champion off the bench and he scores in this game, and FC Dallas is starting, guys who, listen, like Khalil Medkar, nice player, nice guy, hasn't been playing much this season, right? He's still trying to find the rhythm. Franco Jara starts, he goes the full 90, a guy who has scored a lot against Tigres before, but like ultimately this game was about, and Nico Estevez after the game, he was like, it was more about physical, getting guys in rhythm. It was more about mental, kind of keeping guys sharp. The result,
Yeah. Well, and let's hope that's what they get out of it, because I think, Bills and I were talking about this last week. Out of the 2 Texas playoff teams, I think FC Dallas might have a little bit more to still, fulfill as far as their potential. I think we've seen kind of what, the best that Austin can do. Maybe they can still reach another level, but I think FC Dallas still has a bunch of question marks that we haven't had answered, right? Like, what if these guys can get it all together consistently, right? What if it can just start to get on the roll, starts to score goals in bunches like we expected them to, and testing yourself against a team like Tigres, one of the most expensive squads in Mexico. I mean, that's a good way to keep yourself in shape. Yeah, I mean, certainly.
Yeah, it sounded after the game as well, like they were kind of taking the result as I would say you should. It was
and they were playing an away game too, right? I mean, it was essentially all.
I mean, listen, like I understand. I told some friends, like I understand the calculus of
Frisco Nuevo Leon. I wouldn't have guessed.
If you're in, I mean, how many Monterrey natives there are living in Texas. You know how many Tigres fans there are in Houston, in Dallas, and Austin. There was a banner from Lufkin, Libres y Locos Lufkin. I had no idea that there was going to be a full chapter there. Guys from Chicago travel. I mean, when Tigres comes to the U.S., it's a huge, huge, huge deal. And I understand the calculus of a person who lives in Frisco or Dallas or Fort Worth or wherever saying, listen, it's 95 degrees. I don't want to drive up the tollway. I'm going to sit my happy self in front of the air-conditioned TV, maybe watch Owen and Steve on the stream, maybe watch a little college football, have a few drinks. Like, I get that calculus, but there were not many FC Dallas fans at the stadium, especially in the supporters section. I know El Matador was there. I know some DBG members were there. Not a lot of Dallas fans in the supporter section. Libres y Locos, like I said, brought tons of people. It's been good atmospheres this season. I'm hoping that for the decision day game against Sporting Kansas City and for the playoff game that looks like will take place in Frisco, at least the first round, that it's good atmosphere, good vibes, etc. Chris, I mentioned that it seems like the team is sort of taking this as it should take it, a game in which, I think the result, it's 3-0. They lost. But there also were not moments where you said, oh my gosh, this team is getting outplayed. And Kosei Tafari, the center back, after the game, I asked him sort of where this would kind of leave the team, if it would affect them, and where they felt like, the kind of flow of the game went. He said, listen, like, we didn't do a lot of defending. We put out the fires we needed to put out. They just had individual quality. They finished their chances. That's the difference. And I think, we've seen in past international friendlies, sometimes that's the difference still between a Liga MX team and an MLS team.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing also about this is they're obviously missing two of their best players who are on international duty, and so I the result isn't as important, I think, as I think Nico Estevez. Again, I'm going to bring Josh Wolf into the equation. These guys come from similar backgrounds. Austin played a friendly match against El Paso this weekend, which was behind closed doors. No reports coming out of there. I was on vacation, so I still don't quite know what happened. And, maybe that's, these teams are staying on the season cadence. I got off the season cadence, and here I am. I'm prepared to talk about a friendly match that happened in our backyard. But no, I kid a little bit. But I think that the result of these matches is less important than the fact that you got these guys, staying in the season rhythm. Got them on the pitch. Got some guys that, like you said, that don't normally get to play a lot. Kept them as part of the group. I think that's important here too. And remember, last time Austin FC did this, they played at Q2 Stadium against Pachuca. They got their tails handed to them, and then they came out swinging out of the international break and had a string of good results in a row. And so I think that maybe if you don't have that friendly match, maybe you get your tail handed to you in that first match back. And I think that's that's positive. I think you're Nico Estevez. I don't think the result matters as much as keeping these guys in the flow.
It's what happened last time to FC Dallas, is that they didn't play a game during the national break. They tried to. There were some COVID cases, and whoever they were trying to bring in, I'm still haven't been able to report like who that was. I'm not sure that the people are clamoring, who were they supposed to play in June? So that's what happened last time, and I think that they hopefully are avoiding it this time. The one concern I would say that I think this match brings up is that no one really raised their hand. Like, this was the opportunity for a player to put their hand up and say, bring me off the bench against Colorado this weekend. Bring me off the bench against Sporting Kansas City in the playoffs. You can rely on me, Nico Estevez. You can bring me in. And other than guys that we already know what they can do, I think Kosei Tafari, who has been filling in for Matt Hedges at center back, Facundo Quignon as a central midfielder, we know he's an option behind Edwin Cerrillo. In attack, where, as you mentioned, Chris, Jesus Ferreira and Paul Arriola on international break. Alan Velasco is injured. Franco Jara didn't do much. Khalil Medkar, Benny Redzik. That no one sort of demanded playing time. No one did I'm not saying anyone did a bad job, but I don't think anyone demanded playing time. No one put their hand up and said, you absolutely have to keep me on the field. You absolutely have to give me a chance. That's the only concern I could see for FC Dallas coming into this game. But we already knew that the rotation was pretty short, that Nico Estevez doesn't go too deep onto his bench, and that he sort of knows what he has in his fullbacks, in his wingers, in his forwards, positions where FC Dallas is not deep enough.
Sure.
Let's look ahead.
You might not have gained as much as you wanted to from this match, but I don't think you lost anything either. I think that's a fair way to look at this thing.
Yeah, I'll throw one in there real quick, just because you recently wrote about Bernard Comungo, right? And he was with North Texas, and
yes.
the MLS Next Pro playoffs didn't take an international break. Do you think that would have been a player to basically say, 100%. Screw the MLS Next Pro playoffs. Have this guy play against Tigres. It's much more valuable.
That's not the experience. That's not the approach they wanted to go with. Bernard, Jimmy Maurer, Lucas Bartlett, the center back. They all went with North Texas to try and kind of boost that team. It didn't work out. They lose 2-0 to St. Louis. Especially Bernard making MLS Next Pro's best 11, having been with North Texas all season. I think he probably wanted to play in the playoffs with guys he'd seen for most of the year, and they made the calculus that Jimmy Maurer was going to benefit more from playing in that game than playing against Tigres. It's just a decision FC Dallas made. I think it makes a lot of sense with Comungo, but I do think he is the type of player that what we saw against San Jose. And as I spoke with Nico Estevez last week that everyone can read about on the Striker, they do feel like if he can get adapted quickly to the game rhythm, he is a player that can help FC Dallas in the playoffs. And they felt like he was a player who could help North Texas in the playoffs. So maybe those guys can make a difference. And some of those other North Texas guys who were part of that game now potentially, if they're signed to a first-team deal, available for FC Dallas to utilize in the stretch run. Let's talk a little bit about the stretch run. We're going to talk about the weekend, and then we're going to play a little game. We're going to get dreaming. We're going to get thinking about the future. But in the press, FC Dallas this weekend against the Colorado Rapids, a tough road, one that I think FC Dallas wants to get all 3 points from because they don't want to be doing anything on decision day other than enjoying playing Sporting Kansas City and not watching the standings. If they win this game, it's almost impossible, I think almost, maybe mathematically impossible for them not to host a first-round playoff game. It would be big, but Colorado's good at home. I think they have 9 home wins, a tougher place to play than maybe people realize, and a team that, based on what they did last year, still has quite a bit that they can offer. It's going to be an interesting approach this weekend for FCD. Going to have to see how Paul Arriola and Jesus Ferreira come back from international duty. It's not a quick flight coming back from Europe, where they are right now playing soccer. We know that they'll probably see some minutes on Tuesday against Saudi Arabia for the United States. So a bit of roster management. Chris, what are the stakes for Austin this weekend as they head to the Vancouver Whitecaps?
Yeah, I think it's just continuing to find playing time for, especially Emiliano Rigoni, continuing to.
This big Rick can cross the border?
He should be able to. Able to. Sorry, your puzzled look had me wondering if you could hear what I was saying there. But I
just wanted to say Big Rick.
Yeah, no, I think there's not a lot of stakes involved other than the fact that I think Austin FC knows that they're still trying to claw their way back to the form that they were in a month or two ago. And so I think that there's plenty of motivation within this group. Guys like Maxi Ruti is still trying to get, his goal scoring form back. Sebastian Drusi is still getting healthy again after, I think a month or so where he's been banged up, and hopefully this break gave him a chance to recharge the batteries. I think you'll see an Austin team that's going to come out swinging, but I do wonder, guys, if they might be better off in the long run. We'll get to this, I think, in the game that you want to play. Maybe better off shipping the points to Vancouver and hoping that they sneak into the 7th spot. Might be a better plan long term. I'm not sure.
I think that's a little bit of that's like 5-dimensional chess when you could really just be playing checkers.
Right.
If you lose and Vancouver makes it, all right, we'll get into it in the game. One very weird thing that my brain goes to, I could be wrong about this. Let me preface it with that. I believe that if LAFC wins Supporters Shield and the Philadelphia Union win MLS Cup, the next team that goes into the CONCACAF Champions League from MLS is the point. 3rd best ranked team in the Supporters Shield standings, I believe. Is that right?
That is right. So, yeah, there are some CONCACAF Champions League
Austin and CCL in year 3 of its existence would be pretty great.
They're sitting in a really good – they're sitting in a really good spot to get it done, though, because Montreal is in 3rd right now in the Supporters Shield standings. Obviously, they don't count toward that because the only way in for them is the Canadian Championship. And so – Austin's got 5 points separating them from New York Red Bulls. So as long as they pick up, is this right, John? As long as they pick up a point, because they've got 2 more wins than the Red Bulls do. So I think as long as they were to pick up a point in Vancouver, I think they'd be safe there.
If they win, it's out of reach.
If they win, it's out of reach. That's the
Dallas.
If they get one win in the last 2 games. If they get 1 win in the last 2 games and then one of those teams wins MLS Cup, or obviously the other way for this to happen is Austin FC winning MLS Cup. But yeah,
sure.
They would
You're in your way.
MLS Cup is the you go to CONCACAF Champions League if you win the title. Obviously, the 2 teams looking for the title. Victor, what's Houston up to this weekend?
Still looking for a coach in the long term and training for the last 2 games and see what they can get out of it. I think guys are still, the thought, right, is that guys are still making their case for next season. We saw, maybe Corey Barrett's one of those players that has taken advantage. I still think, you've seen enough of what you have in the roster. Maybe some of the younger guys can get some players. A big one, maybe, and for Kenny Bundy, who's probably, even though he's not publicly saying it, but trying to put himself in the coaching conversation, Hector Herrera could be back. He's been recovering from an injury. He hasn't played under Kenny Bundy in these games. These are his last opportunities to get any rhythm before the World Cup, at least with the Houston Dynamo, right? Besides the Mexico friendlies, just a couple of days prior to Qatar 2022. So maybe we can see an HH sighting in Nashville, and then you would think on HH bobblehead night against the LA Galaxy in Decision Day, that would be one to watch as well.
You think that he's motivated to come back healthy for his bobblehead night, and if he's not 100% and his World Cup is at all in question, he's not coming back because they're handing out a bobblehead of him in the stands. I'm telling you that right now. I hope he plays. For Houston fans, I hope he does something cool and celebrates with his bobblehead. I love some weirdness, but I don't think the bobblehead night is going to have too much influence on Ach's decision-making process. But
I hope Victor gets the quote that proves you wrong.
I know. Why did you feel like you needed to rush back from your injury tonight, Hector? It's bobblehead night, baby. I never would miss
if I scored, I could do the celebration.
It's such a specific. It's not you. I don't know. Wow. All right. Well, fingers crossed for that. Let's play a game. Let's talk about the future. This was a segment that we're calling "In Your Dreams." Now, in theory, like a cool music thing would happen, but we didn't. It's not in the budget, I guess.
We
just didn't prepare for it well enough. In Your Dreams is a segment where we talk about what each MLS team in Texas should be dreaming about in the future. Some of them are team specific. Some of them are just for all three teams. Let's start in Houston. Victor, who's your dream candidate? In your dreams, who's the next manager of the Houston Dynamo?
If we're just, flat out dreaming, why not a guy like Bielsa, right? Why not?
I was like, he's going Bielsa.
It's the only chance you have to. It's probably the only chance you have to get a candidate like this, right? The opportunity of him being a free agent, having an owner now that can finally spend the cash. I think that would be cool. If you want to put a little bit more of a realistic spin on it, anybody that has had Liga MX experience, I think a guy like Mohamed, a guy like Tuca Ferretti, can really amp up the level here in Houston, because I've said it over the years, it's been the lackadaisical training environment. I'm not exactly saying they should go full on hindsight, right, and limit the water breaks, but I think there does need to be a different edge here in Houston, and maybe a guy like
it worked so well. The dehydration worked so well in Atlanta. No, I understand.
Well, it ain't gonna work in Houston.
Brings an intense day. Yeah, good night. They need an intense day-to-day manager who's demanding. Our friend Hercules Gomez has a great story about that famous Tuca Ferretti video, because he's cussing, yelling, he smashes a ball, and everyone just assumed for years that it was a goal.
Yeah,
but Hercules Gomez says it wasn't. That was kind of like when I found out some, I don't know how young our listeners are, but about certain mythical
he still hit it clean,
certain holidays. He did hit it. Yeah, he absolutely hit it clean. But that was like a very disappointing moment for me where I found out that wasn't entirely real. I mean, look, I would love to see Bielsa for Houston. I'm not sure that like you're saying, like that. It's the segment's called In Your Dreams. I love it. That's kind of in my dreams too. Yeah, I do wonder if some of those, Mohamed is an interesting one, someone who has Liga MX championship experience, but maybe would be open to a challenge in another league like he was in La Liga. Tuca Ferretti, I don't see that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. He wants to cross the border, learn English. Like, I don't know about that one. But
I'm buying into this. I love
Juarez is as far as
Victor's. In Victor's dreams, he's hosting a weekly coaches show called Breakfast with Bielsa. So you get all
that's what I was going to say, man, is that Victor wants the only Spanish-speaking coach, so he's the only one in Houston who gets good quots, which, I mean, look, like the Striker's fine with that. We would benefit. I think a Bielsa bobblehead would be great. He's, sitting on a water cooler. You can get him,
that would be good.
Or maybe the hand.
This is gold.
The hand scribbles in the notebook instead of the head bobbling. Maybe the movement action is in the hand. Bielsa's a great one. I think Antonio Mohamed's a good one. Jacques Passy, a guy who coached the Dominican Republic national team, who coached in Liga MX, who has had links to MLS in the past, I think is an interesting name, even though he's not maybe more in the like Nico Estevez mold, where it's like not a name that everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's him, but like a guy who might be able to get things across the line. Chris, anybody that you would throw out there as like a dream candidate for Houston?
I mean, as far as like, I'd love to see someone take a shot on Landon Donovan, but maybe that's not the right. But I do think that'd be fun. So I think for entertainment value, yeah,
be the first Quake to move to Houston. So
Yeah, there you go.
I will say, your dream scenario for fans is probably, I think, one of the most names that they've thrown out there is obviously Tata Martino because of what he did recently with Atlanta United,
Sure.
Mexican national team. And I'll just throw this out there. I think nightmare scenario, if you're looking for a ex-Mexican national team coach, probably Juan Carlos Osorio.
I think Osorio would be a good manager for Houston, man. I think he'd be a good manager for Houston, but
I'm just throwing shit.
I know you are. I know. I mean, look, like that. I would say, to be fair, if Houston wants to show that they're in this sort of world, that they are competing with some of the best teams, it doesn't have to be a big name, right? FC Dallas had a turnaround under Nico Estevez. We've seen other, even like an LAFC, Steve Cherundolo. Like, it is a name. It's a guy we all know. Right. We remember his playing career, but never had experience at this level necessarily. It doesn't have to be a big, sexy name, but if you're going to play in that area, why not think about Tata Martino? Why not think about Juan Carlos Osorio? Why not think about Bielsa? I think the sort
of. Or
thinking
Pochettino. I mean, that's dream big.
Tomas Pochettino?
Zidane, just bring Zidane.
Yes, of course, the Pochettino that Austin fans immediately go to. I think it's fun. I think Houston fans should dream big because the club is saying that they should, right? They want to be in the mix with Austin and FC Dallas next year. While we're talking about the playoff teams in Texas, let's talk about the dream playoff opponent, Chris. Who does Austin FC want to see across from them at Q2 Stadium when the first round begins?
Yeah, I was going through this, and I got an answer that might be surprising to some. But I think that of the most likely options, assuming I don't think Vancouver is going to get over that line at this point, I think it's Portland because even though Austin just lost to Portland and has lost to them twice this year, I think that even in those matches, Josh Wolf has shown that his team's going to have the ball against the Portland Timbers, and I think that if they have the ball at home with a motivated team that's executing the game plan, I think that looks closer to what we saw last year at home against Portland than it does this year against Portland. So I think from a coaching standpoint, I think it's Portland for me.
For FC Dallas, I'm going to select Minnesota United. I know that FC Dallas hasn't always been great against the Loons, but they were last time, and Minnesota United on a bit of a struggle. They're going to have to get over the line first. But I think FC Dallas would love to see them because they've shown recently that they can beat them when they shut down Modelo. They do well. Is it going to happen? I don't know. Nightmare scenario? I got two. One is Hani Mukhtar. And the other is anyone from Cascadia, just because of the history. FC Dallas always ends up playing Seattle and Portland in the playoffs. Sometimes FC Dallas even beats one and loses to the other. I'm just tired of seeing playoff games against teams from Cascadia. Give me anyone else just for some sort of diversity. Chris, nightmare scenario? I guess let's turn the game on its head. Who's the worst team that Austin could see come to QT? Do you have anybody?
I mean, well, first of all, Victor and I are just hoping at some point we can say the phrase, "I'm tired of seeing playoff games." In any context. But nightmare scenario for Austin FC, I think, is LA Galaxy. I think that this team has really struggled against the Galaxy.
Possible,
yeah, it is possible, and I think that as far as like a first round matchup of things that are somewhat likely or possible, I think that the Galaxy is the one that I think that would be the toughest matchup for Austin FC to deal with right now.
I would say Seattle if they get in. Jeez, can you imagine the run they
but Seattle, Seattle's almost mathematically eliminated at this point, aren't they? I guess they do have a game in hand, so they can still sneak in. But I think that loss to Vancouver pretty much
the Galaxy.
Nail in the coffin.
I agree that the Galaxy are like a spooky team, not only because of maybe history and some of the other kind of variables that are Austin specific. I mean, they look good. Chicharito scoring goals. The team is kind of figuring things out. The defense maybe not as leaky as they were for a lot of the season.
Especially because we'll probably see a tifo in a playoff match for Austin. So.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. That's true.
Chicharito inspired by tifo. I like Chicharito, man. Everyone hates on that guy. There was did you see those memes on the Mexican internet, Victor? Like, he gave an interview in English after the game, heat of the moment, like sweating, and he's speaking with an accent, which is fine. People are trashing on his accent, and this dude's spoken English for a decade. It's fine. It's fine. Get off Chicharito's back. Call him to the World Cup. They won't. They won't do that. Let's talk about everyone's dream scenario for the offseason and talk about a team's dream signing. I'll go first for FC Dallas. I think you're going to have to replace someone at forward, and that someone is Jesus Ferreira, because I think he's going to get sold to another team after having a decently successful World Cup. Maybe that's optimistic from this American journalist, but
they can't make it 2-for-1 and have Franco Jara leave with him.
Well, Franco Jara probably will be out during this offseason, although I think they have to buy him out because I think he's got 6 months left on his contract. We'll get into that during the offseason, but I think the dream signing is Funes Mori from Rayados, a former FC Dallas youth product. Doesn't necessarily fit the Nico Estevez system as well as Jesus Ferreira does, but he's a guy who, when he's healthy, has scored goals wherever he goes, whether it's for Rayados, whether it's for the national team. It's a guy who came up in Arlington. It used to be on the FC Dallas Academy, kind of. It's a complicated situation after that Sueño tournament that saw him go back to his native Argentina. But I think FC Dallas is going to need a forward who knows how to smash in goals. Maybe you're a little gun shy after the Franco Jara experiment to bring in another big central forward from Mexico, Argentine or Mexican Argentine, however you want to call him. But I think it'd be a great story, and I think he would score goals for FCD.
A homecoming.
Victor, who's in your dreams? Who's the Dynamo signing this offseason?
I don't think I have a particular name, but I think the example. No, because it would be an unknown, right? But the example would be a Drusi type player, right? Somebody who's relatively that age, 25-ish, can play that position, can be the star, or the player for the future, to be the connector between Hector Herrera and Sebastián Ferreira on this team. They need somebody that sort of category out of, obviously I'm thinking, maybe an Argentine, somebody of those qualities that can be that star for Houston for years.
Hey, what you need is a Colombian. You need Quintero from 2015. That's what you need.
That ain't happening, man.
Well, yeah, I think that's fair. You could get one fit, maybe.
Well,
right. Chris, in your dreams, who's Austin FC signing this offseason?
I thought about going a couple different directions as far as fit with this, but I'm going to go with anybody who's playing in the World Cup. Because I think that's the one thing that's been kind of missing from this Austin. Like, these international breaks have no juice to them whatsoever from an Austin perspective because there's nobody playing for their national team. And so, to get a guy who's maybe it's a center back from just a random country who looks really good, against, somebody.
That's where I thought you were going to go. That's where I thought you were going to go as center.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we can think about positional need and, maybe a fullback, maybe a center back, but just somebody who's, there you go. Tomas Pochettino. That's the dream. That's a dream signing for Austin.
Sale, yeah.
That's a dream signing after he can't find a landing spot when
a real Joe Corona situation.
No, but I think getting somebody with a national team experience who's playing at high level national team tournaments, I think would be fun for Austin FC fans and maybe some of those more casual fans that are only, that are sort of trying to get into the sport, but don't have a recognizable face. I think being able to point to somebody that played it in Qatar would be fun for me.
Let's wrap it up there. Fans, you can tweet us at the Striker News and tell us who your dream signing for your team would be during the offseason, who your dream opponent is for the playoff teams, or if you're a Houston Dynamo fan, who you want the team to sign as manager. It can be anybody that we mentioned or anybody at all. It's your dreams, not mine. I don't care what you say. It's up to you. Again, we're at the Striker News. You can check that out. We got 2 more minutes here before we wrap up. Best thing we ate this week, I guess you guys were pretty local. I had the Tigres game. Chris, you're on vacation? You munch on anything tasty?
Yeah, I'll go the Victor route. I had some home cooking. My mom was making making some Buckeye pie and calzones, all the carbs you could possibly.
Hold on. Now, what's Buckeye pie?
Buckeye pie? Oh, so yeah, clearly not from Ohio, John. If you don't know what the Buckeye combination,
that's the question.
Yeah. So it's anything with peanut butter and chocolate. If you know what Buckeyes are,
we've had the Buckeye, like the Christmas cookie, like you roll it up, dip it in chocolate, put it in the fridge, it hardens.
Right.
So it's nice.
Right. So that's the color of the Buckeye nut. So anything. Yeah. So it's like chocolate pudding layered with like a peanut butter, like a sweet peanut butter cream on the bottom on the crust, and then whipped cream on top. So It's
that's a robust dish. Victor in Houston this weekend.
Hey, there's a new food truck in town over on 45 South in Belford. It's called Mexicuba. Pretty good food. If anybody in Spanish on follow the show, what's it called? MasterChef Latinos. One of the finalists, Notis, he just started it in the last week. So it's really good food for a food truck, right? Very good quality, and I would say the price is really accessible. So Mexicuba, go check it out.
Very nice, very nice. And trying to think. I'll just shout out my boys over at Renew, the coffee shop in Frisco. I post up there to watch. It's like I think it's the best sports bar in Frisco because the internet works, so I just watch the Texas Tech Red Raiders there, and then I walk to the stadium because I know I'm going to miss all the game if I drive. So, yeah, check out Renew. You can stream. Oh my gosh, I was the game didn't end in time, and the lovely people at the FC Dallas communications staff had the game on in the press box for me and for everyone to enjoy. And yeah, Texas Tech Red Raiders take down Houston a couple weeks ago, take down UT, Austin contingent. Not
Chris's adopted team.
I think Phil was frustrated. Phil West, was frustrated. I think Theo went there too. I need to talk trash to Theo. I'll get it done. Anyway,
was Theo in Austin at the
UT fan?
I don't know if he was at the game, but I know that
he went to UT.
Is it exactly? Yeah. So anyway, Texas Tech.
I see.
In the national championship game. No, I don't think so. Yeah, Texas Tech probably winning a national championship in football.
That's my dream playoff matchup for Ohio State. I'd love to see the Red Raiders.
Would be relatively easy given how poorly we've played in these games that we've still managed to win. I don't think Tech will. Well, but look, it's the first year for a coach. As we've learned from MLS, sometimes you got to give your first-year coach a little bit of longitude, a little bit of latitude. We'll see what happens in the Joey McGuire era. If you want more takes on that, you can tweet me at Arnold, John. But all the other good stuff is at the Striker News and on the Striker itself. Check out thestriker.com. There is a free trial. Now is the time. A bit of a slow show today, maybe. We talked about our dreams, talked about the future, all the coverage of the final 2 matches of the MLS regular season, plus the playoffs on the Striker. Check it out now. Get that trial in before the playoffs. You're going to like what you find. You're going to stick around. You're going to enjoy the playoff coverage and some World Cup stuff too. It's all over on thestriker.com. We'll talk to you guys next week, recapping the games from this weekend, looking ahead to Decision Day. It's right here in this same feed. We'll talk to you then.